Hello, and welcome to Break for Art. I am Cristina Echezarreta, the current McDermott intern for adult programming here at the Dallas Museum of Art. Today we'll be looking closely at Freedman's Field, an installation created by the late Dallas artist Tracy Hicks from 1990 through 1994. For an in-depth look, I'll encourage you to expand the image to full screen so that you may have a deeper look. And at any moment, feel free to pause the video for a longer viewing experience. Let us begin by simply looking at the ornate installation, which consists of a collection of excavated artifacts and objects artfully organized and meticulously arranged on a table. Begin by looking at the objects in the center of the table. What do you see? Pay close attention to the arrangement of the objects. Move your eyes in a spiral motion away from the center and into the edges of the table. What objects do you see now? What items are grouped together? Who do you think these objects belong to? As you take the time to look at the various aspects and details of Freedman's Field, I will read to you a snippet written by Hicks about the installation. One day, a decade ago, as I was walking my dog through a field beside my studio in downtown Dallas, I found a China doll leg. I picked up little things out of the gutter, beautiful little relics of some spent experience. They tell stories. Actually, they reveal their life, and we create stories we can comprehend. Obsessive? Maybe. But for the next several years, every day I'd walk Deb Dog through that field, morning and evening, and every night I'd spend hours at the sink washing that day's finds. Lots of beautiful bits came to the surface. Dozens of pieces of silverware were mixed in with tools and bottles. A porcelain laying egg and hundreds of mule shoes were mixed in with buttons and doorknobs. It was as though they were working their way up to the surface, so I could find them. I just kept washing them and laying them out on my dining room table to dry. They found their way to the surface and then onto my table. The place settings happened. The only Western culture inhabitants of that land were the freed slaves and their descendants. These relics were their stories. I simply invited them to reveal themselves over dinner. I questioned my sanity. They revealed a story. When you were listening to the written words of Tracy Hicks, what thoughts came into your mind? Were you surprised by Hicks's recollection of the objects and their origins? Displayed on a wooden table, you see shards, broken bottles, old watch parts, fragments of porcelain dolls, coins, buttons, oxidized silverware, and rusted metal. What do you think these objects meant to Hicks, and what do you think these objects meant to those who they belonged to? And why do you think the installation is titled Freedman's Field? Among the various excavated objects are broken ceramics shaped into the form of dinner plates. Who do you think Hicks is setting the table for? Maybe a family preparing to gather for dinner? Ceramic shards are a type of artifact that relates to a domestic setting. This allowed Hicks to create a narrative that brings the Black community to the table. What do you think the ceramic pieces composed as plates symbolize? Contrary to what you may have thought, these ceramic pieces were not part of the dining ritual, but instead of a death ritual. Broken plates were a key component of funerary rituals performed at Freedman's Cemetery. Objects used by the deceased were turned upside down on graves after they had been broken. By breaking their belongings, they released the spirits within the objects and allowed the object spirits to join the spirit of the deceased. Burial rituals and the objects were designed to break the chain of death and protect family members as well as the community. Though Hicks did not originally know the meaning and use behind the excavated artifacts, the table setting speaks to a narrative that is truthful to the lives and communities of those who the ceramics were meant to serve in life and honor in death. Freedman's Field directly stems from the grounds of Dallas. Hicks's studio was located on Ruth Street, and while walking his dog in a vacant field near his studio, he noticed the leg of a china doll and picked it up, which led him to continue to excavate and uncover hundreds of artifacts from that field throughout the years on his daily walks. Though perhaps the history of the site was one of the most important aspects Hicks uncovered. The field Hicks spent years excavating once supported a vibrant African American community, one of the first settlements of freed people in Dallas. Throughout the years, the freedmen's homes in the community became threatened. Even so, Black communities pursued and thrived throughout Dallas. By 1889, the city of Dallas merged Freedman's Town and North Dallas. Over the next decades, these two historical Black communities flourished in population and economic value. Though by the 1980s, most of the buildings that people called home had been demolished. The thousands of objects Hicks found in the ground were directly connected to the formerly enslaved people and their descendants who built Freedman's Town. The structures and the individuals who lived in them are brought to light in Freedman's Field, which displays a variety of remnant domestic objects like knobs, irons, tools, containers, toys, glassware, silverware, all assembled as a table setting for four. Along with these objects, there are also rusted and broken artifacts. Why would Hicks choose to include rusted and broken artifacts in his installation? This inclusion intentionally or unintentionally addresses the destruction experienced by the Black communities. African American families have upkept their history through oral stories, though for some, this history is lost. The material evidence of the town may be a reminder of the racial discrimination that existed and continues to exist, and the struggle to dismantle it. Now I ask you, without the physical evidence of the objects and materials, would the memory of the town remain as strong? Like so many in Dallas, Hicks did not know the story of Freedman's Town until he came upon it himself. His discovery of the history of the site and his collection of the objects reflects the erasure of history that occurs when communities are demolished. Hicks's Freedman's Field reveals the complexity of remembering, understanding, and narrating history, especially the history that surrounds us. The work demonstrates how art can help us understand and uncover the history we know and do not know, and push us towards another type of narrative, one of truth, and one that helps us further understand the community and the people who previously inhabited the land we now call home. In doing so, we can connect across time to those whose history deserves to be presented and told. As Dallas continues to grapple with how to represent its past in the public sphere, Hicks's work provides an example of how we can speak to multiple historical truths using art. I hope you enjoyed digging into the work of Tracy Hicks and uncovering the hidden history of Dallas. We hope to see you soon here at the Dallas Museum of Art.